Ever get that feeling?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
you're just wading through so much information, trying to figure out what actually matters.
Mm-mm. Information overload. It's real.
Exactly. So that's what we do here in the deep dive. We take a whole stack of material, could be anything really, and we try to boil it down.
Find those key insights, the stuff that gives you, the listener, a real handle on what's going on.
And today, we're diving into something a bit different, an excerpt from a novel.
That's right. AA2 in the Hat by Raffi Yessayan. We're sort of immersing ourselves in this fictional world he's created. Boston, crime, personal lives all tangled up.
Yeah, it's not just reading a story. We're looking at narrative, dialogue, descriptions,
Hmm.
all focused on crime, law enforcement, and the people caught up in it.
And our mission here is really to pull out the core ideas. What's driving these characters? What are the maybe surprising links between their worlds?
What are the underlying motivations, right,
Yeah.
beneath the surface of this fictional Boston? Okay, so let's jump right in. George Wheeler, he's our first focus. A guy deep in the criminal life, calls himself a shooter.
Mm-hmm. And facing death. There's this immediate tension there.
Yeah, this internal conflict. He's scared, but also wants to face it his way. And he thinks back, doesn't he, how we got involved with gangs.
He does. And it's that classic path, isn't it? Starts with easy money,
Right.
but then it twists into loyalty, obligation, and violence over, as he puts it, stupid shit.
What does that tell us, that progression? From easy money to that.
Well, it really speaks to the initial draw, doesn't it? Sometimes it's economic, a lack of other paths,
Sure.
but then the group dynamic takes over. That loyalty, however twisted, becomes paramount. And the reasons for the violence, they get lost. It just escalates. It shows how powerful those social bonds can be, even when they're destructive.
Okay, and then, almost immediately, we meet Coach Alves. Seems like a total contrast.
Right. Youth football coach. It's talking about winning, hard work.
But there are these little hints. He mentions the Sarge not missing his old boss, Wayne Mooney.
Hmm. Suggests a past, doesn't it? Maybe law enforcement, military, something structured.
And his kids, the twins, Iris, the athlete, and Angel, who seems troubled.
Yeah, it sets up this complexity, his present role versus this hinted at past. Is he trying to make amends or just move on? How does that history shape him now?
And how do his kids, reflect his own internal stuff?
Good question. Lots of layers right from the start.
Then things take a dark turn. The kids find a body.
Yeah. And the description, it's deliberately disturbing.
Yeah.
The makeup, wired to a tree.
Night hands. It's grim. But Al's reaction, it's not shock, is it?
No, it's more like recognition, almost professional, like he's seen this or things like it before.
Which suggests
Oh, well, it strongly suggests a past involving death and violence, not your typical civilian reaction. You have to wonder, was he a cop, military, something else? It definitely hints at a backstory we don't fully have yet.
Okay, so back to George Wheeler. After his death, the police response seems, well, almost minimal at first.
Right, a bit of tape, a couple of detectives milling around.
And then Sergeant Ray Figgs from Homicide arrives. But there are whispers he's got other things on his mind, maybe not fully invested.
Yeah, and that tells you something about the reality, doesn't it? In a busy city, resources get stretched.
Cases get triaged.
Exactly. A gang-related death, sadly, might not get the same immediate all-hands-on-deck response as something else. It raises questions about, equity in the justice system, whose death gets the most attention.
But then, bang, a huge shift.
Definitely. New crime scene, 2 young victims dressed for prom.
And suddenly, everyone's talking about the Prom Night Killer.
A cold case, 10 years cold, a killer who slipped through Mooney's fingers back then.
And now Alves is on the scene with Connie, Ahern. This feels like a major turning point.
Oh, absolutely. A serial killer resurfacing, that changes everything. It ramps up the stakes, the pressure.
And brings Alves and Mooney's history into focus too, right? That past failure hanging over them.
Precisely. It links past and present in a really intense way. You know this is going to be the central thread now.
We also get introduced sort of briefly to this character called Sleep.
Yeah, very unsettling vibes. Disturbing dreams, this fixation on Mama, mentions them.
It feels separate somehow. Shadowy. What's his role here, do you think?
Hard to say yet. Could be a red herring. Could be connected in a way we don't see.
Or worse.
Or worse, that fixation, the vague threats, it definitely puts him on the radar as a potentially dangerous element. The Mama thing hints at some deep psychological issues. Could easily intersect with the main plot later.
Okay, switching gears again. Connie, he's in court, grand jury, trying to get a witness, Tracy Ward, to talk.
And Ward's not having it. Disrespectful, hints at a shooting, but clams up. Classic gang stuff.
What does that scene really show us about investigating these kinds of crimes?
It just vividly illustrates the wall investigators hit. Fear, intimidation, a total lack of trust in the system.
Snitches get stitches, right?
Exactly. That code of silence is powerful. Ward's refusal isn't just defiance, it's self-preservation in that environment. Shows the limits of the legal system when it bumps up against those deep-rooted social dynamics. You can have evidence, but getting witnesses is another battle entirely.
And we learn more about Alves and Mooney. Their history is clearer now. Mooney was his old boss.
Right. And Owls' new sergeant, Duncan Pratt, doesn't sound like he's cut out for homicide.
No, Alves seems to think he's more of a desk guy. How might that leadership change impact things? Mooney's experience, Pratt. Maybe not so much.
Well, it could definitely hinder things, couldn't it? Having someone less experienced in charge during a major serial killer investigation, Alves might feel unsupported, or maybe he'll end up relying on Mooney unofficially. Leadership matters, especially in high-pressure cases.
Connie's still trying to get Tracy Ward to talk. There's this weird detail about using Detective Green's cigarette smoke as a tactic.
Yeah, it's unorthodox, isn't it?
Definitely. What's the play there?
Maybe desperation, trying anything to break through, create discomfort, find some weird common ground. It hints at the kind of gritty, maybe ethically murky stuff that happens off the books sometimes when you're trying to get information. A glimpse behind the curtain, maybe?
And then the confirmation comes. The connection to the Prom Night Killer is real. You could feel the shift in Alves.
Yeah, that's a huge moment. It makes the threat concrete, no longer just a possibility. It's happening now.
For Alves personally, given what we suspect about his past, this must hit hard.
Absolutely. It's not just another case anymore. It's this case, the one that got away. And it likely triggers all sorts of feelings for him, given his history with violence.
But Connie's persistence pays off elsewhere. He gets an ID on the shooter in the Franklin Park case from Ward. He gets witness games, too.
Right. So even with this massive serial killer case looming, the other work doesn't stop.
Shows the reality of police work, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Juggling multiple serious cases all the time.
Definitely. It's a constant balancing act. And getting a win on one case, even a smaller one, can provide some needed momentum when another case feels overwhelming.
But the Prom Night Killer case definitely dredges stuff up for Alves. We hear about the bloodbath killings.
Yeah, a past case. Horrific details, bathtubs filled with blood, missing bodies.
And the suspect, who killed himself, was someone Alves knew.
Right. That adds a whole other layer. Unresolved trauma, personal connection, maybe guilt or doubt about how that case ended.
How does that likely affect him now, facing another serial killer?
It's got to cast a long shadow. Could make him hesitant or maybe more determined to get it right this time. He's not just fighting a new killer, he's potentially wrestling with the ghosts of that old case. It makes his involvement much more personal, much more vulnerable.
The autopsy results for the two new victims come in. Asphyxia, for one.
And small caliber bullets for the other. With tattooing, a gun barrel bruise, and his clothes are missing.
Disturbing details. What do those tell investigators typically?
Well, they often point towards ritualistic behavior control. The specific combination of methods, the tattooing that can be like a signature. Missing clothes might be about dehumanization, removing evidence, or part of the ritual itself. These details help build a profile, get inside the killer's methods, and hopefully his mind.
Mooney, drawing on his experience, figures the female victim was the main target.
Right, and he points out the nightmare of investigating near a huge Boston College football game. Thousands of people, potential witnesses everywhere.
But also tons of noise, unreliable accounts. How do you sort through that?
Exactly. It highlights the real-world messiness of investigations. It's not just lab work. It's managing chaos, filtering information, dealing with crowds and confusion.
Yeah.
Logistics can be just as challenging as the forensics sometimes.
And then there's this persistent issue, the community gun. A 2040 cal linked to loads of shootings.
Yeah, that's a huge headache for investigators.
Why is it so hard to trace a gun like that?
Because it gets passed around. It's not registered to one person. Dozens of people might handle it, use it. So even if you recover it, linking it definitively to one person for one specific crime, almost impossible. Fingerprints, DNA, could be anyone's. It creates this frustrating anonymity.
We check back in with Sleep. He's in Mama's bedroom looking at photos of young couples.
Yeah, still very unsettling. This talk of eternal happiness, it sounds obsessive, detached from reality.
Like a warped view of relationships. What's the danger there?
Well, that kind of intense, idealized fantasy often clashes hard with reality, and when it does, that can trigger aggression, even violence, especially if he feels rejected or if his fantasy is threatened. His focus on couples could be significant, given the prom night killer targets couples.
Meanwhile, Alves is dealing with fallout at home. His wife, Marcy, is terrified, angry.
Understandably so. The killer is active in their neighborhood. She confronts him about his duty to his family.
That's got to create huge pressure on Alves.
Yeah.
Job versus family safety.
Immense pressure. It's a direct conflict between his professional oath and his personal responsibilities. That kind of stress can really wear someone down, affect their focus, their judgment. He's pulled in two incredibly stressful directions.
And the fear spreads. Football practice is canceled. Even Iris, his athletic daughter, is scared.
Yeah, that really brings it home. It shows how these crimes don't just affect the victims, they send ripples of fear through the whole community. Daily life gets disrupted. That sense of safety just evaporates, especially for kids. It's a heavy psychological toll.
Alves and Mooney dig into the old prom night killer files, and those signature details are chilling.
Right. The prom clothes, sometimes the victims wore them, sometimes the killer dressed them later.
The star-shaped hair in a shirt, tattooing,
That craft store stamper with the Taiji symbol often put on upside down.
and the fortune cookie in the mouth. And that headline, Prom Night, Bloody Prom Night.
Those details are crucial. That's the killer's MO, his signature. It's what links the crimes across that 10-year gap. It suggests ritual, specific psychological needs. Understanding that pattern is key to potentially understanding the killer.
But then there's a later crime scene, Daria Marcus and David Riley on the Riverway. Seems less carefully staged.
Yeah, that's interesting. A change in MO can mean a few things. Maybe the killer's getting cocky, feeling invincible after so long.
Or maybe rushed, more careless.
Could be. Or maybe his state of mind has shifted. The reasons behind the ritual might have changed. Analyzing those shifts is important. It can offer clues about how the killer is evolving, maybe even help predict what he'll do next.
Okay, shifting focus. Connie, Green, and Ahern are looking for those new witnesses in Grove Hall.
Right. And they run into a group, mourning a friend, drinking beer. Then Luther and Rich Sardino show up.
The mayor's street saviors.
Yeah, and the clash and approach is immediate. The cops, maybe a bit heavy-handed. Luther and Sardino trying the community angle, and Ahern's clearly skeptical of them.
What does that whole interaction tell us about community-police relations?
It just lays bare the tension, doesn't it? Mistrust on both sides sometimes. Different approaches, different perspectives. The cops might see the street saviors as interfering, or maybe distrust their pasts. Luther and Sardino probably see the cops as outsiders who don't understand the streets. Building bridges there is obviously a huge challenge.
And we learn more about Luther's past. Darius Little, Delight, college football star whose life went sideways after his brother died, did time for a shooting.
That context is huge. It explains his drive now, right? He's seen both sides. He knows the consequences. His past likely gives him credibility on the street, fuels his desire to help kids avoid his mistakes. It makes his role as a street savior seem pretty authentic.
Zordino, though, he seems different. Wary of the cops, distrustful. And we find out why.
Wrongfully convicted of murder, spent years inside for something he didn't do.
Wow. Okay, that explains the attitude towards the system.
Completely. You can't go through that without being deeply scarred and distrustful. His work as a street savior might be genuine, but it's almost certainly colored by that experience. He's likely always going to keep law enforcement at arm's length, maybe even see them as adversaries. It definitely complicates his role and his interactions.
Alves keeps having this recurring dream. His murdered friend, Robin Stokes, and her killer, Mitch Bewley, the bloodbath killer.
That trauma just keeps bubbling up.
What's the significance of that dream persisting now?
It suggests that case is still unresolved for him, psychologically. Maybe guilt, maybe doubt about Bewley being the real killer, especially since Alves knew him. It's likely affecting how he sees the prom night case. Is he projecting? Is he extra driven to get this one right, to make up for the past? It's a constant reminder of the darkness he's dealt with.
Moody's at the crime lab with Stone. Big confirmation. The bullets match. Same gun used 10 years ago and now.
Crucial forensic link. It's definitely the same guy back in action.
And Stone has this theory about the weapon, a modified .22 that fires rapidly, calls it a hitman's weapon.
That detail suggests sophistication, planning. Not just any gun. A specific tool chosen for its effectiveness, maybe for quick, quiet attacks, tells you something about the killer's mindset and capabilities.
Then Alves makes this interesting analogy. His electrician neighbor Uses Romex wire for everything.
Yeah, comparing it to the killer potentially having a familiar medium, like a specific tool or method they always default to.
What's the value in thinking like that?
It's about looking beyond just the crime scene details and thinking about the killer's habits, their comfort zone. What tools are they familiar with from work, hobbies? Identifying that familiar medium, whether it's wire, a type of knot, a specific location, can offer real clues about their background, their skills, maybe even their job. It's a smart way to profile.
Another detail. The jewelry on the victims changed. Real emeralds on the early victims, now cheap glass beads.
Interesting shift. Alves compares it to BTK storing his hit kit.
Right. Suggests the prom night killer might have kept his tools, his kit, hidden away for 10 years. And now maybe some parts are degraded or replaced.
It reinforces that idea of premeditation, ritual. This isn't impulsive. He likely planned his return, maintained his supplies. The change in jewelry could mean something symbolic faded, or maybe it's just practicality. The original expensive items were harder to replace after a decade. The idea of a stored kit leads them to check storage facilities, a logical next step.
We see Luther and Zardino prepping for a conference. Their different backgrounds are highlighted.
Yeah, and there's that slightly uncomfortable mention of Zardino appealing to students, the Chiquitas.
That felt a bit off. Why might that be a red flag for investigators?
Well, given Zardino's history and platform, it raises the question of whether he might be exploiting his story, his notoriety, to gain access or trust, especially with young women. It could be innocent, but it could also suggest manipulation or grooming. It's something investigators would likely file away, keep an eye on his interactions.
Connie deals with another wall of silence. A mother terrified to let her son testify against gang members, even with witness protection offered.
Just another stark example of the fear that paralyzes communities. The threat of retaliation is so real, so immediate.
Witness protection sounds good, but it means leaving everything behind.
Exactly. It's a huge upheaval. And the fear often outweighs the perceived safety offered by the system. Building trust in those situations is incredibly difficult.
Sleep's thoughts drift to specific locations. BC, Chestnut Hill. Prefers places closer in the city. Still feels random, but...
Well, locations can be clues, right? Maybe these are areas he knows, frequents, could connect to victims, or where he feels comfortable operating. Even casual thoughts can sometimes provide geographical links later on. Worth noting.
Alves and Mooney are grabbing a bite, talking theories. Mooney is skeptical about the killer just being away for 10 years.
Yeah, he's thinking pragmatically. Check recent prison releases, that's standard. Incarceration explains a long gap.
But he also says, consider guys with no record at all.
Right, because sometimes the most dangerous people blend in perfectly, haven't had any run-ins with the law. So you have to look at both ends of the spectrum. The known offenders and the seemingly ordinary citizens. Keep the net wide.
Just as Alves is leaving Mooney, he gets paged. Another shooting.
But the victim wasn't in a tux, so likely unrelated to their main case.
Grim reminder, though. Violence doesn't stop just because there's a serial killer investigation.
Absolutely. It just shows the constant pressure these guys are under. Juggling multiple violent crimes is the norm. They have to categorize, prioritize. It's a tough reality.
Alves gets home, and things with Marcy are bad. She's taking the kids to her mother's.
The strain is just too much. Her fear, her anger, it's boiling over.
How does that kind of personal crisis affect Alves' work? He needs to be sharp right now.
It's got to be incredibly distracting, incredibly stressful, worrying about your family's safety, your marriage falling apart. That takes a huge emotional toll. It can cloud judgment, lead to fatigue. He's fighting battles on multiple fronts now.
And Sergeant Figs. We find him drinking heavily at a bar, complaining about the smoking ban.
Yeah, reinforces that image of him being jaded, maybe burned out.
What happens when cops get that burned out?
It can be bad. Less motivation, maybe cutting corners, cynicism. It can impact the quality of investigations. Apathy is dangerous in that line of work. Leads to missed clues, maybe even injustice. It really highlights the need for mental health support in law enforcement.
Alves can't sleep. Mind racing between the case, his marriage. He decides to check out a website, promnightkiller.com.
Interesting move. What's he hoping for there?
Maybe public theories? Tips? Trying to understand the killer's mindset, maybe see if the killer himself is interacting online, or just trying to get a different angle, grasp the public fear. It's looking beyond the official channels.
Yeah, desperate times, maybe call for desperate measures, exploring every avenue.
Then we get a flashback. Sleep and Natalie. She accuses him of stalking. He reacts violently when another guy, Ronald, touches him, uses a homophobic slur.
Whoa. Okay, that's really revealing. It shows his possessiveness, his potential for violence when rejected or challenged, the stalking history.
And the prejudice.
Right. It paints a much clearer picture of Sleep as unstable, jealous, and potentially very dangerous, especially regarding Natalie. This isn't just fantasy. He acts out.
Just a quick mention. Figs attends a meeting about ShotSpotter technology.
Ah, the gunshot detection system. Modern policing tool.
What does it actually do? And how helpful is it?
Basically, sensors around the city listen for gunshots, triangulate the location, and alert police, sometimes faster than a 911 call. Can be useful for rapid response, finding evidence like shell casings, mapping gun violence hotspots.
But it's not perfect.
No. Accuracy can vary, noise can interfere, doesn't tell you who fired the gun or why. It's a tool, part of the picture, not a magic bullet.
Alves bumps into Connie, who's fishing for info on the prom night case. Alves is hesitant.
Learned his lesson, maybe? Mentions leaks during the bloodbath case.
Why is keeping information tight so critical, especially in a case like this?
Leaks can absolutely wreck an investigation. Tip off the suspect, they destroy evidence, they run, contaminate witness testimony, people start repeating what they heard in the news instead of what they actually saw. Media frenzy can make it worse. Alves is right to be cautious. Protecting the integrity of the case is paramount.
Connie mentions Zardino's wrongful conviction. That circles back to the street saviors. Mooney then remembers Luther's real name, Darius Little, Delight.
The former football star, brother died, turned to crime.
It adds another layer to Luther, doesn't it? The potential he had, the tragedy, the fall, and now trying to pull others back.
Yeah, it makes him even more complex. He understands the allure and the cost. That lived experience gives his work now a different kind of weight, you'd think. He's seen it all.
Then there's this tense gang intelligence meeting. Ahern and Green aren't happy about civilians like Luther and Zardino being there.
Classic turf war stuff sometimes. Cops can be wary of outsiders, especially ones with criminal records, thinking they might compromise things or have other agendas.
Creates fiction.
Definitely. Building trust between law enforcement and community groups, especially those led by people with pasts, is often a real struggle.
Mooney's at Wollaston Beach, his usual routine, but gets called to another crime scene.
And who does he find there? A very distressed Luther.
Yeah, and Luther's worried. Says the gun used in recent shootings might not be just some random stash gun. Thinks there's something more deliberate going on.
That's significant. Luther's got his ear to the ground. If he senses a pattern, a shift from random violence to something more targeted or organized, that's valuable intel. Shows the importance of listening to community voices.
Connie's back in prosecutor mode. Talking about a plea deal for a kid caught with a gun, mandatory minimums. Sounds confident.
Yeah, it shows his focus on getting convictions, using the tools he has, like mandatory sentences, pragmatic.
But then he immediately asks Alves about the prom night case again. It's clearly still on his mind.
It seems to have a real grip on him, doesn't it? More than just another case.
Meanwhile, Alves and Mooney track down that drunk tailgater from the BC game area.
The one who saw the white van.
Yeah. He vaguely remembers it. Nondescript, homemade roof rack, maybe bounce it around. Not much to go on.
Still, even shaky eyewitness accounts can sometimes yield a crucial detail. That homemade roof rack, that's specific. Might corroborate something else, jog another witness's memory. You collect every scrap, right, see if any pieces fit together later.
Then Connie throws out this wild theory. The killer is using fortune cookie messages.
Yeah, that the fortunes dictate the victims, maybe? And the first fortune wasn't even meant for the first
It
victims?
sounds out there. Is there value in exploring stuff like that?
Sometimes, yeah. Especially with serial cases where motives are bizarre. Thinking outside the box can break log jams. Connie's trying to find some logic, even if it's twisted. Maybe it's symbolic, psychological. You can't dismiss unconventional theories completely until you have a better one.
They also toss around the idea of the killer being locked up for the 10 years.
Makes sense for the gap.
And they look at that fortune again. Depart not from the path which fate has you assigned.
Ugh. You can see how a killer could twist that, right? See their violence as destiny. If he got out of jail and found that fortune, could feel like a sign to start again. Chilling how people can warp things to fit their own narrative.
Sleep is watching Natalie again. Lost in distorted memories, getting angry.
His obsession isn't fading, it's intensifying.
Okay.
The focus on her, the anger, it really signals danger. He seems poised to act either towards her or someone he sees as a rival or obstacle. He's a definite threat.
Connie's at court again. Runs into Sonia Jordan, Tracy Ward's lawyer.
And she's got strong views on prosecutors, plus a past connection to Mitch Bewley, the bloodbath killer suspect.
Adds another interesting player to the mix. How might she complicate things?
Well, she could be a tough opponent for Connie legally, and her connection to Bewley. Does she doubt his guilt too? Could she have information about that old case, or maybe an agenda related to it? Her presence definitely adds potential conflict and intrigue.
Then Sleep takes a dangerous step. He follows a couple after Natalie leaves, planning to harm them.
Okay, that's a major escalation. From watching and thinking to actively stalking with intent.
Shows he's capable of violence? Triggered by seeing happy couples, maybe?
Seems likely. It makes him a potential perpetrator, even if not the prom night killer specifically. He's acting on his impulses now. Very dangerous.
Connie arrives at another crime scene. Arnold Arboretum. 2 more bodies.
More upscale area this time. Connie initially thinks it's unrelated to prom night. Different location, maybe different victim type.
But making assumptions like that can be risky.
Yeah, very risky. Serial killers can change patterns, locations. You can't rule things out too quickly based on superficial differences. Tunnel vision is a real danger. You have to investigate thoroughly before deciding cases are unrelated.
Mooney shows up and disagrees. Sees a potential link. Olmsted's Emerald Necklace Park system. Starts quizzing Alves about the parks.
Moody's thinking geographically, looking for bigger patterns. Smart. Killers often operate in areas they know. Connecting crime scenes geographically can reveal comfort zones, travel routes, even help predict where they might strike next. The Emerald Necklace connection is an insightful leap.
Connie thinks back to the original case. Wonders if another murder back then, Marcus Little's, got overlooked because everyone was focused on the prom night killer.
That's that tunnel vision problem again. It's crucial to review seemingly unrelated cases from the same period. Could Marcus Little have been an early victim? Or connected somehow? Overlooking those potential links can mean missing vital clues.
Connie hits the library archives, digging through old newspapers, then calls Alves. The new victims on Peters Hill are BU students.
Okay, so Connie's actively pursuing leads. What's he looking for in those old papers? Connections, names, mentions of BU around the time of the first killings. He's clearly connecting the university angle now.
Alves talks to John Bland about the bloodbath case, and Bland drops a bombshell. He doubts Bewley was the real killer.
Suggests maybe Bewley was framed. Questions why the killing stopped after his suicide.
Yeah. This plants serious doubt in Alves' mind about a supposedly closed case.
Wow, that's huge. It forces Alves and us to question everything about that past investigation. Was justice really served? Could the real killer still be out there? It underscores why investigators have to stay open to revisiting old cases, even if it's uncomfortable.
Connie goes to BU's registrar's office, gets a list of students from 10 years ago.
Following that BU connection, what's the play? Look for links between old victims and students back then. Maybe cross-reference with Zardino's timeline.
Seems likely. Maybe check who knew who dropped out, any weird circumstances.
He's definitely zeroing in on something related to the university environment around the time of the original murders.
And then Connie puts it together. He starts suspecting Rich Zardino, the prom night killer.
The timeline fits, right? Zardino's incarceration matches the 10-year gap in the killings. His release matches their return.
Plus, his current role as a street savior gives him access, maybe cover.
That alignment of incarceration, release, and the crime pattern is classic cold case investigation work. It makes Zardino a very strong person of interest. The street savior role adds that chilling layer of potential deception.
Alves checks in with Mooney about the hypnotist session for the white van witness.
Trying to enhance that shaky memory.
And Alves mentions checking sex offender registries for white van owners. They're hitting it from multiple angles.
Good strategy. Combining witness recall, even if flawed, with database searches. You need to pursue every possible lead in parallel, hope something clicks.
Just a quick aside, Connie's looking forward to a hockey game. A little slice of normal life.
Important reminder, these guys aren't just cops or prosecutors. They have lives outside the grim stuff. Helps keep them grounded, maybe.
Alves is lying awake. Can't shake the thought that Bewley might not have been the bloodbath killer.
But he can't talk to Marcy about it. She was friends with Robin Stokes, one of Bewley's supposed victims, and she's already terrified about the prom night killer.
So he's carrying this huge doubt, this huge burden, completely alone.
That's incredibly isolating and stressful. Internal conflicts like that, secrets, they can really mess with your head, your objectivity. How can you think clearly when you're wrestling with something that big and can't share it?
Quick flashback. Michael Rogers gets confronted, shot. Another reminder of the ongoing gang violence.
Yeah, separate from prom night, but part of the same violent tapestry of the city they're working in. Keeps the background danger simmering.
Figs is on the scene of Rogers' murder, Mother's Peace Park. Despite his earlier burnout, he's doing the work.
Shows that underlying professionalism, maybe. Even jaded cops often have a core sense of duty. He might complain, but he's still investigating a homicide.
Connie goes to Zardino's old high school, East Boston High. Wants a yearbook.
Looking at Zardino back then versus now, comparing appearances.
Yeah, and he knows Zardino's conviction was overturned because of a lying informant, so he's not just taking the official story at face value.
Smart. Building his own picture, looking for visual confirmation, being wary of past official narratives. Changes in appearance over decades can be subtle, but potentially revealing.
Alves takes a big step, contacts Sonia Jordan, asks about the bloodbath case, admits his doubts about Bewley.
Risky move, talking to her. She's connected to Zardino now, defended Bewley.
What's driving Alves? Desperation for answers.
Probably. He needs another perspective, someone outside the police bubble who was involved back then. He might think Jordan holds a key piece of information or saw something others missed. He mentions his wife, Maricela, maybe trying to build a connection, appeal to her sense of justice.
Connie's doing surveillance, stakes out Zardino's old place, and sees Natalie Fresco leaving a nearby house, gets her license plate.
Bingo. A direct link between Zardino's past location and Natalie. That's huge. Suggests a significant relationship back then. Maybe she lived there, knew him well during the time of the original murders. Connie now has a name and a way to track her down.
He follows her to work, Newberry Street, tries to talk to her, shows his badge, she's wary.
Understandable. A detective showing up, asking about someone connected to a past murder conviction. That's going to put anyone on edge. Connie has to tread carefully to get her to talk.
But someone else is watching. Sleep sees Connie talking to Natalie. Gets suspicious. Thinks Connie might know something. He even thinks about that phantom gun.
Okay, this is bad. Sleep sees Connie as a threat now, interfering with his obsession. And the phantom gun reference? Does Sleep have it? No, who does? This raises the stakes dramatically. Connie might be in danger from Sleep now, too.
Connie keeps talking to Natalie, and she opens up. Tells him about her past with Zardino.
What did she say?
That he was obsessive. Stalked her. She got him fired from a job nearby. And then he got arrested for murder shortly after the one he was later exonerated for.
Wow. That's massive confirmation for Connie. Obsessive behavior, stalking, a clear motive for resentment linked directly to Natalie, happening right around the time of the first murders. This makes Zardino look much, much guiltier.
Sleep moves his van, finds a better spot to watch Natalie shop. He's planning to confront Connie.
His intent is clear now. He's not just watching, he's planning an intervention, likely hostile. Connie's investigation just got even more dangerous.
Connie calls Alves, drops the bomb. I know who the Prom Night Killer is. Richard Zardino.
How does Alves react?
Disbelief, mostly. Worried about the politics of the Malik and I. Zardino's a street savior, connected to the mayor, worried about his own job.
And he thinks back to Bland's theory about Bewley being framed, right? Wonders if this is too convenient.
Yeah. Like, are they just finding evidence against Zardino because he fits now? Plus, Alves remembers seeing Zardino drive by the Peters Hill crime scene. Adds another layer of suspicion, maybe.
It's messy. Pursuing a prominent figure is always fraught with politics and potential backlash. Alves' hesitation is understandable, even if Connie seems convinced.
The tension is palpable. Green slams on the brakes. Connie's paranoid, thinking Alves suspects him of framing Zardino. They see some driver acting weird.
That internal suspicion is corrosive. If the investigators don't trust each other, the whole case can fall apart. It distracts them, makes them second-guess everything. Not good when you're hunting a serial killer.
Connie calls Figs about another case, the Jesse Wilcox homicide. Mentions their suspect, Stutter Simpson, being arrested by Green. Figs is annoyed.
Yeah, Figs seems territorial. Doesn't like Connie sticking his nose into his case. That kind of attitude definitely doesn't help collaboration.
Alves escapes briefly, takes the ferry to Martha's Vineyard. Just looking at the sea, feeling the weight of his badge.
A moment to breathe, maybe. But the job follows him. That weight is always there.
Figs is still working the other angles. At a barbershop, asking about someone named Grady, gets a call from Stone.
The community gun.
Yeah. Confirmed it's the one used in multiple shootings. No prints. Dead end, basically, for linking it to one person.
Frustrating reality of that kind of weapon makes solving those other shootings incredibly hard.
Alves meets with Sonia Jordan, asks about her past with Connie.
Get some interesting details, right? Connie was a gentleman, helped her career, but weird about intimacy. Maybe hung up on someone named Rachel.
Yeah, possibly his daughter. And he was secretive about his house. Adds layers to Connie, makes him seem complicated. hidden depths.
Those personal details, inconsistencies, they can sometimes point to something hidden. Why the secrecy about his house? What's the story with Rachel? Might seem irrelevant, but sometimes it's key to understanding someone's psychology.
Sleep escalates his surveillance. Rents a blue minivan because he thinks Darget, Connie, recognize his usual van.
He's getting more paranoid, more determined, going to greater lengths to watch Connie without being detected. That level of commitment is worrying. What's his endgame?
Figs is also persistent. Back investigating Stutter Simpson's arrest area, talking to street sources like Leo, trying to see if the official story holds up.
Good investigator's instinct. Doesn't just accept the arrest report. Digs deeper, talks to people who might have seen something different. He clearly suspects something's off about the Wilcox case or Simpson's arrest.
Figs is still mulling the Wilcox case on the ferry back. Seems dedicated to getting the actual truth.
Yeah, despite the burnout, there's a core integrity there, isn't there? He won't let it go if he smells something wrong. That's good policing, even if he's grumpy about it.
He reviews the shot spotter data for the Wilcox shooting. Limited info.
Shows the text limitations again. It detects a shot, gives a location, but doesn't tell the story. Just one piece of data.
Luther talks to Figs about Stutter Simpson. Expresses serious doubt. Says Simpson's old school, wouldn't use a hot semi-auto like that, would prefer a revolver. Questions why he'd be so careless.
Luther's street knowledge providing valuable insight again. Contradicts the official narrative. He sees something in Figs's eyes too, determination. That connection, cop and community figure, seems important.
Things take a turn for Connie. He sees Zardino's bright blue minivan parked near his house. Realizes Zardino might be watching him.
Whoa! The tables are turned. The hunter becomes the hunted. That's got to be deeply unsettling for Connie.
Alves is at Connie's house. Connie shows him the attic. Makes a creepy comment about it feeling like a coffin. Alves gets uneasy.
Red flag right there. That's not normal banter.
Then, downstairs. Connie ambushes Alves. Pins him. Immobilizes him.
What? Okay. Total shock. Connie attacks Alves. Why?
We don't know yet, but it's a massive betrayal. Connie reveals he used to have a .40 Sig Sauer, claims it was stolen, that's why he got a safe. Alves notices a laundry room, large table. Details that might mean something later.
The stolen gun. Could that be the community gun? The tape? For what? This is getting dark fast.
Alves mentions Bewley's shrine. Connie tenses up, then shows Alves a locked room in the basement.
What's in it?
A replica courtroom, an exact replica, his practice courtroom.
Okay, that's beyond bizarre. Deeply disturbing. What does that even mean? Obsession with control, judgment, playing God. That explains the secrecy about his house.
Figs confronts Darget, Connie's partner, about leaning into Simpson's car during the arrest. Darget gives an explanation, but Figs is still suspicious.
Figs isn't letting the Wilcox inconsistencies go. Still thinks something fishy happened with that arrest, maybe involving Darget.
Connie's watching Zardino again, this time giving a lecture. Sonia Jordan's there, Marcy Alves introduces him, Luther's in the back, not clapping.
Connie focuses on a young woman in the audience, captivated by Zardino and her boyfriend. He has a realization.
That Zardino's using these lectures to pick victims.
That's his horrifying conclusion, exploiting his fame, his story, to find vulnerable young women. Luther's anger confirms Zardino's likely manipulating people.
The young woman approaches Zardino afterwards. They exchange info. Connie's sure she and her boyfriend are the next targets.
He sees the pattern, the grooming. The danger feels imminent.
Sleep's also there, in the parking lot, planning to approach that same couple with some story about cables.
Oh no. Two predators potentially converging on the same victims.
But then Marcy Alves shows up unexpectedly. Talks to Sleep briefly about her kids, Franklin Park. She has no idea who she's talking to.
That's terrifying. Marcy, completely unaware, interacting with Sleep just as he's about to act. Adds incredible tension.
Mooney and Connie are driving. Mooney grills. Connie, why didn't you tell Alves about Zardino sooner?
Connie says he tried. Alves didn't buy it. Repeats his theory. Zardino targets women from his audience who resemble Natalie Fresco, using his wrongful conviction story.
He mentions checking Zardino's lecture schedule, the resemblance to Natalie, her story about being stalked near the fens back when the first murders happened. The case against Zardino seems strong in Connie's mind.
Yeah, he's connected a lot of dots. Motive, opportunity, timeline, victimology. It's compelling.
Then they drive past Natalie's house. Lights are off. Way too early. Connie knows her routine, her mom's routine. He has a sudden realization.
That Zardino might be there. That Natalie's in danger now.
Seems like it. The pieces click into place in the worst way. Sleep's thoughts are on his little things in the attic trunk. focusing on his plan, still deeply disturbed.
Foreshadowing something awful connected to Natalie, seems like.
Mooney and Connie get to the fresco house. Dark, quiet, definitely wrong. Mooney tells Connie to stay back, potential hostages.
Standard procedure, but the tension must be unbearable.
Mooney gets ready to breach the door. Connie sees movement in a back window.
It's happening. Confrontation is imminent.
Inside, Sleep hears the noise, thinks it's his little things, sees Mooney at the door with a log, reaches for his gun.
He's ready for violence. Misinterpreting the situation, maybe, but still dangerous.
Then he breaks down the door. Sleep fires. Mooney goes down.
Oh, God.
But someone tackles Sleep immediately, cuffs him. It's Alves. He was there too.
Alves. Okay, so Sleep is apprehended, but Mooney shot. Chaos.
Later, Alves and Connie are in a diner. Debriefing. Connie lays out the evidence found at Zardino's place.
What did they find?
Wire like the kind used on victims. The Beretta, the modified .22 maybe. An album with photos of the victims. Pretty damning.
Sounds like it. And Zardino's father's death is being reopened, too.
Yeah. Luther's cleared, obviously wasn't involved at the fresco house, and he's furious at Zardino. Still talking about racial bias in how crimes are seen, though.
Important perspective to keep highlighting, but the case against Zardino seems solid now.
Connie, though, is still set on prosecuting Stutter Simpson for the Wilcox murder.
Huh. Even after everything was Zardino and Sleep. Interesting. Shows his focus.
Yeah, the dynamic between Alves and Connie seems almost back to normal. Professional, maybe even friendly again.
Like they've been through the fire and come out the other side, processing it.
They leave the diner, banter about cars. Connie suggests going to White Stadium for beers, like old times.
A moment of trying to reconnect, find some normalcy.
They get there. Connie's quiet, thinking about the national anthem. Reflecting.
Seems peaceful, maybe? Processing everything.
And then Alves wakes up. He's on a bench. Cold, injured, confused. Connie's standing over him.
What?
Connie's pointing Alves' own Glock at him, wearing latex gloves. Offers him a beer.
No. It was all an act. The diner, the stadium. Connie.
Alves throws up. Total shock and betrayal.
I can't even imagine. Why? What's Connie doing?
Connie explains his own Christed logic. He thinks the neighborhood's safer with gangbangers dead, killed by that untraceable community gun. He implies he's been using it. He sees Alves and Figs focusing on individual victims as missing the point.
So Connie, he's the vigilante, using the community gun, and now he's targeting Alves. This is insane.
He lays out a cold plan, says Alves' death will look like something else. Marcy will get fundraiser money, move on eventually.
Yeah.
Horrifyingly detached.
He's completely lost it. Sees himself as judge, jury, and executioner.
Alves fights back, manages to disarm Connie somehow. They struggle. Connie fires the Glock at Alves.
Desperate fight for survival. Against his own colleague.
Then another shot. Connie falls.
Who fired?
Sergeant Ray Figs steps out of the shadows, kicks the Glock away.
Figs! Where did he come from? He saved Alves.
Looks like it. He tells Connie not to move. Connie whispers he was chosen.
Delusional to the end.
Figs shoots Connie again. Kills him.
Wow. Just wow. Figs executes him. So much for due process there, but maybe necessary. Unbelievable ending for Connie.
Later, Alves is in the ICU visiting Mooney, who's bandaged but alive.
Thank goodness Mooney survived. They both went through hell.
Alves tells Mooney about the search of Connie's place. Found an embalming table. No souvenirs, no trophies like typical serial killers. House was obsessively neat.
Embalming table. That's clinical. And creepy. Matches the replica courtroom. Neatness suggests compartmentalization, a very unusual kind of killer.
Mooney adds one last piece. Connie's grandfather, Noah Darget, believed the world was ending. Built an ark. Connie burned it years later, scattered the ashes.
Family history of delusion. Apocalyptic thinking. Connie burning the ark. Destroying the past. Or embracing destruction. Adds another disturbing layer to his psychology.
And of course we should note the author Raffi Yessayan's acknowledgments, showing the real-world research behind this story.
Right. Good fiction often has roots in reality. Adds authenticity.
So wrapping this up, what have we really pulled from this deep dive into this novel excerpt? It's been intense.
Incredibly intense. We saw incredibly complex characters, didn't we? The lines just completely blurred. Law, crime, personal lives, trauma, all crashing together.
The motivations were often hidden, twisted, based on past hurts, warped ideas of justice, and the plot twists were definitely unexpected.
Absolutely, those aha moments, or maybe oh no moments. The community gun being wielded by a prosecutor,
Right.
Zardino using his victim status as a cover, and Connie, the ultimate betrayal, just stunning reveals.
And for you, listening, wanting to get that quick but deep understanding, seeing things from different angles without getting lost. We hope this walkthrough achieved that. Gave you a real feel for the core conflicts and themes.
Yeah, it's been a journey through a pretty dark fictional landscape, but it definitely leaves you thinking, doesn't it? What does this story, even though it's fiction, tell us about the real world? About crime, justice, the extremes of human behavior.
Maybe think about the motivations we saw. What drives people to these lengths? What are the systemic pressures, the personal demons? Lots to chew on beyond just the shocking events themselves.